Well, in Rome this evening is Cardinal Vincent Nichols, the Archbishop of Westminster. Great to see you this evening. Thank you very much for your time. And just before we start to chat, let's remind ourselves of the moment that the white smoke emerged yesterday and the rapturous reaction in St. Peter's Square. So when the white smoke emerged, huge cheers. It was breaking news around the world. That was the scene outside the Sistine Chapel. What I'm interested in knowing is what was the mood inside? What was the reaction inside once you had all learnt the name of the new Pope?
Well, we didn't exactly cheer and wave our arms, but there was great excitement and jubilation. Partly that a very difficult task had been done, and the crucial moment, of course, was when Cardinal Prevost was asked, "Do you accept?" And he said, with great calmness, "I accept." And then he was asked, "And what name will you take?" And he said, "Leo." And at that point, there was a wonderful sense of, okay, we've done our best, we've done our bit, and this is going to be good.
The conclave, of course, is shrouded in secrecy, and we hear a lot about the process, about quiet conversations in corridors, about whispered debate over meals. Can you paint a picture for us? What was it like in the run-up to that announcement?
Well, I think the whole thing changed on Tuesday evening when most of the elector cardinals went to the residence, the Santa Marta residence, and we were sealed in. You know, mobile phones didn't work, we couldn't open the shutters, it was the secrecy was very important. And that gave a great calm in there, more than I ever expected. And quite frankly, for me, it's been quite a profound spiritual experience, an experience of being with fellow cardinals who all share the same dedication, with our eyes and hearts focused on one thing, and that is trying to discern what God wants. In whose heart did God write the name Pope? Because he was in there, and we just had to try and discern who he was. But I would like to say that, unlike in the film, there was no rancor, there was no explosions of unknown quantities. And in fact, the whole time I didn't hear a raised voice or a voice that was trying to do somebody else down, or even a voice that was saying, "Please vote for me." It was far more calm and recollected than that. It was a wonderful experience, frankly. I went in a bit fearful, a bit intimidated. But once we were together, I found it really remarkable and very life-giving, actually.
That's fascinating. We did hear from the brother of Pope Leo today, who said that he in fact had watched the film Conclave almost as preparation for going in. It sounds like you had seen the film as well.
No, I'm sorry, I haven't seen the film. I've read the book, and in many ways it was different because of the needs for a plot of a novel. But I think the details, as what everybody has described to me, were very accurate. And certainly the rule book that we followed is meticulous. So this was a process over which great detail and great care was taken, and it needed patience. So actually, I learned a bit of patience to take things slowly.
And I don't know if you're allowed to answer this question, but was Pope Leo your first choice?
Let me say that when I came to Rome, I had a list in my mind of 3 or 4 possible candidates. He was certainly among them. The list changed a bit as the 10 days and 12 days went by, but he was never off my list.
Today, the new Pope has called for the Catholic Church to desperately counter a lack of faith. Those were his words in his first Mass. How do you think he'll do that? Do you think the Catholic Church needs modernising, and how will he try and achieve that?
Well, I think what we had in Pope Francis was a remarkable expression of the beauty and the richness of the gospel of Jesus Christ, particularly mercy, forgiveness, hope, try again, get up, don't lose your dignity. Nobody should be robbed of their dignity. Now, I think what Pope Leo is going to try and do is say, those things are the work of everybody. He wants a missionary church, not simply a missionary pope. And so that's where it then comes down to every parish, every community. Here's a man who's been the bishop of a poor diocese in which he found people with great faith and great motivation. And I know that in the Diocese of Westminster, the energy of the church often lies in the humblest of people who get on and build their lives and those around them with a dignity and a worth. What the Pope has to do is try and keep this all together. And I think he's got great skills in finding ways through problems, whether they're organizational or personal, and keeping the show on the road and keeping a great sense of we are in this together. And at the heart of it is our devotion and the love of Jesus Christ.
Yeah, it's very interesting what you're saying. As a cardinal, he was fairly critical, wasn't he, of the new administration in the United States. Do you think that will be an issue going forward? How will he navigate that?
Well, I'm not sure he'll have an exclusive eye on the United States. In one sense, he's now even more a citizen of the world. So his range of interests is going to be clearer. But questions around immigration touch every nation almost, pretty well without exception. And it's just a question of how we understand progress. Pope Francis had a lovely expression. If you want to know how good your economy is, then go and ask an unemployed person. And there'll be a similar approach, I think, from Pope Leo, because they come from the same stock. He's an Augustinian, from Augustine from the 5th century. And if people look at what Augustine said, then they'll find that reflected in this Pope Leo, I'm quite sure.
And just finally, as we watch the white smoke once more come from the chimney, it's been a very intense few weeks, I'm sure, for you. Just reflect on the last few days, the last few weeks.
Well, for me, the last few days, especially the conclave, strictly speaking days, have been a wonderful experience, frankly. I was, as I said, a bit intimidated, but I found them to be life-giving, to be a growth of confidence in me and my fellow cardinals, and therefore a great hope for the Church as we continue our pilgrim journey. It's been really an excellent time for me.
It's good to hear. Cardinal Nichols, Archbishop of Westminster, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Habemus Papam.
Joining me now with his thoughts and reflections on the election of Pope Leo XIV and his history of pastoral ministry in Peru is the founder of Word on Fire Ministries, the Bishop of Winona Rochester, Bishop Robert Barron. Thank you so much for being
good
here.
To be with you,
what a joy to have you back. It's only been 12 years since I had you here around the table.
Right.
We heard much in recent days about the diversity of this College of Cardinals, the expansion of the Church in Africa, Asia, the peripheries. I don't think anybody imagined that these cardinals would look to the periphery of America to elect Robert Provost.
I sat
Leo
right here a
XIV.
few days ago with Colin Flynn and going over candidates, and I said, with all my sage wisdom, they'll never elect in America.
I said the
Everyone's
same.
playing that back to me now, So no, we didn't think that was going to happen.
Yeah, but it did. Why do you think they chose an American?
I think they chose the man, really. I mean, you look at him and you see this range of experience. Administrator, canon lawyer, pastoral ministry, now dicastery experience, curial experience. I think when they saw that, and also him, I know him a little bit from the two synods. I was with
Yeah,
him.
that's what I was going to ask you. I know you spent time with him.
Yeah, the last 2 Octobers. And the first time I met him, I went up to him and I said, "Oh, hello." I think he was cardinal by then. You reminisce. You just got a big job. Head of the dicastery. Little did I know a bigger job was coming. But, you know, he's from Chicago. We grew up about 25 minutes from each other. He's only a few years older than I, so really from the same world in Chicago. So he's a good man. He's a soft-spoken, kind of self-contained, prayerful person. I think they saw all of that and they elected him.
Well, look, he was only a cardinal for 2 years,
Yeah, right.
and he's only been here in Rome for 3.
Yeah.
How does that pastoral experience in Peru, how will that shape the Pope that we're about to get a glimpse of?
Oh, I think a lot. You know, I mean, there he is. He has the best of Pope Francis in him. The man that wanted to go to the margins, serve the hungry, the poor, the homeless. You know, the corporal works of mercy. His life was all about that in a very dedicated way. I think it's interesting. The last 2 popes have been religious. We have a Jesuit, now an Augustinian. And it gives a worldwide perspective, but also that, you know, basic commitment to the works of mercy, I think will certainly shape his papacy.
I want to show the audience a glimpse of the Sistine Chapel Mass this morning, where he opened in English, probably the first time in history we've ever had a Pope pronounce a homily at its start in English. Watch.
Through the ministry of Peter, you have called me to carry that cross and to be blessed with that mission. And I know I can rely on each and every one of you to walk with me as we continue as a church, as a community of friends of Jesus, as believers, to announce the good news, to announce the gospel.
What did you think when you heard him say that particularly, and the fact that it was being pronounced in American English?
Which is Chicago English.
Chicago,
You know.
even better.
No, but you know what I like is that we talk about political positions and this and that strategy and so on. The Pope's job is to declare the resurrection. He's the successor of Peter. Peter came to Rome to declare the resurrection of Jesus from the dead. That's the Pope's job. So I love the fact that the first things he said basically are the gospel. And the gospel is not just, you know, vague velleities about the political life. The gospel is good news, everybody. Jesus Christ rose from the dead. So that's the Pope's job, and that's the first thing he's done.
Yeah, there was one moment there where he invoked the martyrdom of St. Ignatius of Antioch during that homily. And Bishop, your thoughts on that aspect of the Petrine ministry, which we rarely talk about. I mean, this square that we sit in front of, this is where St. Peter himself was crucified upside down and then buried a few, like a mile further. But this is where it all happened. Connect the dots there for me.
I think about that all the time when I come here, you know, this grand Renaissance piazza and everything. But, right, Peter was brutally put to death, probably just over that way, where the Circus of Nero was. They think the last thing he might have seen is that obelisk that's still here. They dragged his body over to the Vatican Hill and threw him in the ground. It was remembered by the small Christian community all those centuries. That's Peter's witness. You know, he gave his life to testify to the risen Christ, and that's the Pope's job. And it's a job unto death. It's a total dedication. You know, Peter, do you love me more than these? Yes, Lord, I do. Well, then feed my sheep. Peter, do you love me more than these? The 3 times the Lord compels Peter to say, yes, I love you. And, you know, when you're a young man, you tied your own belt. When you're an old man, someone else will tie you up. But we saw exactly where they tied him up, right here. So I think that should, in a positive way, kind of haunt the mind of every pope.
Yeah. Well, that's what I've been reminding people all week long. This isn't electing a prime minister or a president. Right. You are electing a successor of the apostle that's buried right here.
It's the most famous grave marker in the world. It's right behind us.
It's quite a grave marker.
Yeah.
Now, you've seen the reportage of Cardinal Prevost's tweets against Trump's deportation plans, some of his criticisms of J.D. Vance. Now, some are saying, aha, he's a woke pope. And then they find his voter registration and it's Republican, and others are saying he's a MAGA pope.
Yeah.
Your thoughts on all of this?
I think he adopts Catholic social teaching, which teaches, for example, that a country can defend its borders, can maintain its borders, and should exhibit an openness to the migrant who's in need, et cetera, et cetera. How you work out the precise details of that, well, that's a matter of political debate. But I think he represents Catholic social teaching, not either Democratic or Republican political position. You know, look, he's a man that spent a lot of time in Latin America. I'm sure he's got a deep sympathy for those who have, you know, migrated to our country and all that.
Sure.
But no, I think it's Catholic social teaching and the name he chose, which to me is the most important thing we know right now about him.
Really?
Leo the 14th, clearly referencing Leo the 13th. It struck me, Raymond, that, you know, almost any other name of a, let's say, Pope the last 100 years would have given away the game. You know, I'm John Paul III. Oh, I know what you're about. I'm Francis II.
Yeah.
The fact that he didn't choose Francis II, to me, is very interesting. He goes back over 100 years to Leo the 13th, the great father of the modern Catholic social teaching tradition, which is neither conservative nor liberal. It's not Democratic or Republican. I think that's very hopeful. That's a bridge building move that he can make.
What, if you had to give the Pope 3 must-do items starting now, what would those 3 items be? What's the most urgent need in the church today, Bishop?
Well, first, I would say you are the sign and symbol of the unity of the church. And so I go back to someone like Johann Adam Müller in the 19th century. Before you get to anything juridical and all that, the Pope's job is to symbolize in his own person the unity of the church. That's job 1. Job 2, I would say, evangelization. Now, I'm seeing it from a more Western standpoint. It's different in Africa, different in Asia a bit, but I would still say evangelization, the great call of Vatican II, Paul VI, John Paul II, Benedict, Francis, all of them. Evangelize, evangelize, evangelize. And then I'll get a little practical, I think, address the finances. And I think we might be underestimating the importance of that in the minds of the cardinals that elected him. They might be looking to this American, experienced in administration, ran the entire Augustinian order, maybe to help them get the finances straightened out.
That's what I'm hearing from some of the
Really?
African cardinals and European
Yeah.
cardinals, that because they got that report. I mean, $400 million in debt. That's just the pensions. $2 billion overall. That's a big hole to dig out of. What about the clarity of teaching? I mean, for the many blessings of Pope Francis, clarity of doctrine was not always his strong suit, because he would say one thing, which was correct, and then he'd turn around and do something else. What must the Pope do to sort of clean up and have a unified voice coming from Rome?
You know, I'm a John Henry Newman man. Newman felt that the Pope's job was to act as a kind of referee, that the life of the church goes on, you know, serving the poor, and then the life of prayer, the life of the intellectuals and so on. The Pope's job was occasionally to intervene and say, no, wait a minute, that's gone too far. Right. No, you can't do that. And like a good referee, then get back off the court or off the field and say, all right, play.
Yeah.
But to intervene clearly and decisively when he had to, I think that is a key papal responsibility. Yeah. If the referee isn't clear, that's why they wear black and white, by the way, you know, because their job is to be very clear. It's black, or you're in or you're out.
Right.
It's fair or foul. If the Pope doesn't do that, we got some problem in the life of the church.
What about the synodal way? Do you think it'll continue? Should it continue in the way it was started?
Yeah, I was involved in it, you know, the 2 synods. I saw a lot of virtues in it. The fact that it brought, you know, the international church together. I like the fact that we were in conversation with each other. I like the fact, look, I'm a bishop of a diocese. If I don't listen to a wide variety of people, I'll make bad decisions. I'm having a synod in my diocese this coming summer. All of that, I think, was good. My problem with the synod was we almost seemed allergic at times to making a decision. So it was a lot of table conversation. What's your point of view? What's your point of view? And here's what I think. And if there was a move to correct or to let's move to judgment, that almost seemed out of bounds. I thought that was a problem. Yeah. So yes, to listen to a wide variety of voices, but we've got to be decisive too in what we teach.
Do you feel it diffuses the bishop's authority when you suddenly invite all of us in and we all get a say and there's 2 bishops at the table and 10 laymen?
We did worry about that. I mean, so part of Catholic ecclesiology is the bishop has this charism of teaching.
Right.
And, you know, we think that's something distinctive. So that did come in the minds of a lot of us at the synod. Now, there are about 300 bishops there, maybe 100 non-bishops. But still, we wondered about the nature of that gathering. If you have the 300 with the clear charism of teaching and the 100 who don't, but we all have the same vote.
Right.
That was an issue that some of us had,
Well, we shall keep our eye on Pope Leo, and thank you for being here.
All right.
We'll talk to you in the days ahead.
God bless you, Raymond. Thanks.